saying too, okay? Oh, Glory, welcome. Cute pug, yep. That's Rocket. How you doing, Rocket? Okay, for some introductions, folks. I am in Atlanta right now, and I'm at the Eagle's Nest. Angel's Nest, excuse me. I've been calling it Eagle's Nest. Wrong war. My very good friend, and we go back a ways. This is Mike Reed, callsign Coma. Go ahead and tell him a little bit about yourself.
How's it going, gentlemen? Okay, we go back to high school, and before that, both of us actually ended up splitting forces right about the latter part of high school, and I went to Auburn University on an aerospace scholarship with ROTC, and he ended up in BYU. Both of us went to the Air Force, didn't realize we were actually there together. Ended up in Flying Phantoms for about 2 tours out of nav school, and mostly in PACAF. Osan, first tour as a remote. Second tour was with the 3rd Squadron in the Philippines at Clark. And then unpreferred, but offered an opportunity that was not allowed to refuse to become an instructor nav at Mather as they were winding down the navs during the latter part of the 1980s. After that, I left the Air Force and resigned my commission in favor of a different life. Ended up working with Lockheed Martin on the F-22 development program. Ended up retiring from Lockheed Martin 25 years later as the Director for Engineering, Marietta Operations, Air Force Plant 6, which included F-35 midsections, as well as the C-5, C-27, C-130J, and the P-3C logistical operations support as the programs underneath my team's belt. And right now, I'm actually happily retired, and I'm grabbing whatever this man wants to eat out here, because he's the boss around here now. So that, in a nutshell, is the short story.
Yeah. And we're going to talk. I'm going to ask him a lot of questions, folks, because he's got an incredible background, obviously in F4s and F-22 program, systems engineering, all kinds of stuff. And Rocket's going to do his thing too here. So welcome to Tuesday Night Live. And we've already got a lot of comments talking about the dog, Guppy, all these folks. And again, I've got my camera here, or my computer here in front of me, folks. So please ask questions that we can ask Mike about flying F4s, the F-22 program, things like that. So, hey, John Gong, welcome back. It's good to have you back, brother. You flew F-4Es, and your first place was Osan.
Absolutely.
So talk a little bit about Osan and your first assignment in F-4s, basically in a war zone.
Well, absolutely. I mean, think of Osan in the middle of the Cold War. Okay, I went to RTU Loop, and we were the second to the last F-4C model RTUs for F-4s. Everybody else had either gone to Ds or Es, and that was at Luke. And as they were winding down, I finished up RTU, and they put a course on your dream sheet. Where would you like to go? And we'll see what we can do about completing that for you. And I put Osan or Keflavik. And the reason I did that, and both of those were remote tours. And the reason I wanted that was because I realized at the time that there was only 2 air-to-air F-4 squadrons left in the United States Air Force. Everything else was air-to-ground. And I wanted to be in an air-to-air unit at least once, because those were dying fast in favor, of course, the F-15s, which were coming into the operational force at that time in the early 80s. This was around 1981. Sure enough, everybody said, "Oh, you want to go remote? Hey, we're there, dude. We'll stuff you in that, Pat." And so it didn't take long for me to go go to lead-in fighter training and get to Osan in mid-time. I had absolutely no casual time at all. So by the time I got there, which was in March of 1982, they've already had a couple of incidents just before I got there. One of which was Thrush Thunder, where the North Koreans had actually lobbed an SA-2 at SR-71 coming across, and of course we responded in kind with a pretty forceful show that was about to go take out the sights, and then they somehow magically stood down, and I came in right at the base right after all that was clearing up. So it was a pretty tense time for the base. I mean, one thing I found interesting is you go there, and I'm still about a month and a half from making first lieutenant. So at that time, I was the youngest for about a period of 2 months. I was the youngest, or lowest ranking, but more like better to say, lowest ranking combat rated Air Force officer in PACAF. And so, make a long story short, we get in there and you take off at Oakland on Contract Airways, Flying Tiger Airways. It's usually the gross sounds by the pug that we have here. Any of you all have pugs, you'll know what I'm talking about. But anyway, so you take off in a brochure and you're in civilization, right? You go out there, it's a pretty long flight, and you land at Osan, and literally the runway's painted, camouflage. You've got hawk batteries all over the place. There's concertina wire all over the place. It's cold, and just getting a little bit warm, but it's still pretty cold in March in Korea. And they're a couple of weeks from Team Spirit, okay, which is literally a peninsula-wide.
Big exercise.
It's a big exercise. Basically, they turn the entire peninsula into a war zone.
Yeah.
Okay. Air, sea, land battles, you get it. So we show up. I show up in there, and they say, "Hey, we had just had about 3 or 4 guys leave, and we're just on the borderline of having our sea status put in jeopardy. So I want you to get in the cockpit, and what would normally be about a 4-week orientation, check out." He said, "We want you flying on a week and a half," which is to say we're going to be double and triple turning you every day, drinking from a fire hose to swap on over to get crew called and the air roll at Osan. And sure enough, that's what I did for the next week, 2 weeks. Was just fly and fly and fly
and fly
and then check ride, bang. Next thing you know, bam, you're out there. And the very first, I would say, operational ride I had, which was really a CT flight, a continuation training flight, was a 4B-16 against Marine F-4Ss in Team Spirit. Well, so
4B what?
4B-16.
Oh.
Well, basically, they're doing their attack profile.
Yeah.
We're coming in as offensive counter air, and we're flying from Osan to the eastern side, which is where the area is going to be, which is just south of Kangdong, the border up there. And now I look down, and the first thing that comes to my mind is a second lieutenant just coming from the stateside is I'm getting SA-2 and SA-3 hits in my raw, and they're real. I mean, with real sound. This is nothing. This is nothing. This is not the training sound. This is the real thing.
Yeah.
And immediately that gets the hair off your head. Now the old heads, they're used to this. They just get used to it. We're flying east, and the second thing is I'm not picking up 1 or 2 targets like we do in training. I've got multiple targets wherever I put the L-strobe. I'm seeing targets everywhere, and it's basically these different strike packages coming in off the carrier, heading feet dry for their targets, which are coming to be in the strike areas. And so, as luck would have it, we get engaged, and we get into this big fur ball. And so it's cold. Everybody's conning. We got this big fur ball going between two ships now. We've broken into 2 ships, and we got in this big fur ball. And we start running low after shooting a couple and dodging a couple. We start bugging out of the area. okay, it's time for us. We're reaching Joker fuel. It's time to go back. And we're diving to get out of there, get some smash, head ourselves back east towards Osan. And I look over my shoulder as we're diving back, as I'm supposed to be checking 6, make sure there's nobody following us out. And what I see is this beautiful blue, cold sky, North Korean sky or South Korean sky, and there's contrails everything. And the first thing I thought of was, man, this is like the Battle of Britain. And I thought, man, I am going to love life here. So that was my intro to Osan Air Base, the 36 Flying Fiends, and South Korea. My first road tour, and that kicked off what would be basically a lifelong adventure.
Oh yeah.
So there it is. I mean, after that, it was basically Clark. Just like everybody else, you go out there, you start enjoying PACAF. PACAF was really a great. I like PACAF, and I'm sure the USAFE guys would probably say the same thing. Being at the tip of the spear, the sense of urgency was so much different than it was being in CONUS. And you get used to that, and that's what you thrive on. And I preferred doing that. So I went from chasing badgers and bears and patrolling the DMZ at Osan, and then I said, well, I'm gonna go to Clark. So I picked up the following assignment to Clark with the 3rd Squadron, basically doing air to ground. And at the time, they didn't let anybody know, but that was also the PACAF Strike Squadron, as well as the GBU-15 paved TAC. So it was pretty much anything air to ground was
Explain to them what you mean by strike, though. Well, this is the cool part of this.
I'm sure most of you guys who are pretty much familiar with the tactical fighter world would know that the term strike really applies to making the sun rise a second time. Okay. Yeah. Now, at the time, a lot of people did not. It was very, very hush hush. Very classified that Clark actually had thermonuclear weapons on site, and of course that under the Celerel doctrine that required 2-man control. So the F4s were really the aircraft of choice to do that mission. Well, you have one air-to-air squadron. We have two air-to-air squadrons. Taegu, the 497th, which was an F4 unit, which had split off from the 36th Squadron. That was a 24 UE fighter or F4 unit. It split to 12 and 12. Well, so the Fiends, the 36th Squadron, had 12. Taegu had 12. That was an air-to-air unit. They were really the tripwire for the PACAF, the North Korean battle scenario.
Okay.
And then, of course, you had the Recce's. And then you had Clark had 2 squadrons. The Recce's came out of Kadena, the F4Cs.
Yeah, cotton pickers.
Yep, cotton pickers at that time. And then you had the 90th Squadron, which was Wild Weasels. And then the only other ground squadron that was F4s was the 3rd Squadron down there. Now, you did have the Hogs. You did have A-10s, which just came in 1982 and stood up the 25th at Suwon. And so that's when they first got there. Now, of course, recently they've just stood down.
Yeah.
And that made the complement of really the strike package, the initial strike package in PACAF and Westpac that was going to basically hold the fort down for a week or so until the rest of the CONUS until the war breakout could catch up. And so that was basically the work we expected to be doing. Now, our 4 deployed bases, of course, were going to be Kunsan and Osan, and for the 3rd Squadron, Osan was really where we went most of the time. And that means any interdiction, basically, that required interdiction, close air support, BAI, as well as TAC, GB-15, the strike mission.
Yeah.
And of course, they're required to have several crews that were certified on specific lines. So the experienced guys, they would pick a specific identified number of crews. And if the frag came down for a specific target, they would already have the 2 crew names that were ready and the configuration, as well as what the frag wanted you to dial in for the yield and everything else that went along with that mission. So later on, in my time at Clark, I had, at least at one time in history, I had 2 lines with my name on it in North Korea. So it was, which was a pretty surreal event by
I'm
itself.
sure.
So all of you SAT guys who've actually certified those lines, you know the drill. Well, I've been through that drill.
Now, some people are asking, okay, which model of F4? He flew F4Es, and I'm gonna have him explain to you pave tack, and so he's a precision guided squadron. All right, and tell everybody what pave tack is and what it does.
Let's quickly. I actually did my RTU with F4Cs, which were very old. I mean, the oldest of the Air Force version of F4s. I went to Osan. I had 1968 model F4Es, which had what we call a soft wing. They had leading edge slats, which allowed you to turn better with the MiGs, as well. Whereas the F4Cs and Ds had a hard wing, and so that hard wing had its advantages. In fact, it had less drag. They could go a little bit faster than the E models, but the E models could turn a whole lot better. Of course, the E models had the gun on it. Now, when I went to the Philippines, most of those were 1971 to 74 birds, and they were modified through PDM to have what they call a DMAS system, digital modulator avionics system. That means instead of having analog buses running your electronics, they actually had electronic computers. So you could actually, instead of having a weapons release control system, a WRCS, you actually have an INS and a weapons computer. So you start getting in, it's not really truly an integrated cockpit yet, but you start moving your way through what became a digital airplane. And you can, those are very distinguishable when you look at pictures of F4s, because they had a little black antenna on the spine of the top of the airplanes.
Yeah, trapezoid antenna.
And so Clark had a squadron of those, Seymour had those, and Spangdahlem had those. And of course the test units had those. But they were the ones, because of that, now you could see what the bomb is seeing. Okay, you could actually carry a laser pod. You could actually have a little bit better navigation, even though it wasn't great by today's standards. So that was the difference between the models of F4s that we were flying. It was still an E model, but it was a digital E model.
And that was one of the latest models, slats, everything. I mean, it was tricked out.
Well, it was tricked out as much as F4 could.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have loved to have a HUD. We didn't have that. We had a combining glass, but it wasn't really a HUD. Yeah. Not like the current model, like the F4 2000s that are out there now. Yeah. We still, when I first got there, we still had smoking engines, and they detuned them for service life. And then they would, when they retuned them for wartime, then it became less smoke. Of course, we had ways to basically mitigate some of that by just going min burner on one and having kill the smoke too. Without that, everybody in the world knew where we were. You couldn't hide. But the digital F4s did make things easier in that time to targets and all that was already computed for you. Came out. But what made it worse was, because you now have the capability to do so many different missions, you had to qualify for some of those missions. So you're always qualifying and requalifying for laser weapons delivery, TV guided ordnance, CAS, BAI, and then we also had a side dock of Air Defense of the Philippines, which basically was stopping anything that comes across the Philippines while we're waiting for the rest of the Kona squadrons to come in. And the Kadena boys to come down with the F-15s. Because at that time, Kadena was the only one that had F-15s, and they had 3 squadrons of them. And they would support throughout the theater as it was wherever the battle sprung up. Now, in that particular day and time, they were North Korea was really the big concern. China was still really not strong enough to be doing a whole lot. But we certainly focused on the whole AOR.
I love the old movie called Red Flag with the F4Es in it. One person says,
Red Flag, the ultimate game. We saw that. It was wasn't exactly quite as heart stirring as, let's say, Top Gun. Yeah, I wish the powers that be at the time, because I was at Clark when the original Top Gun actually aired, and we loved the movie. I mean, it was great. We would sit and watch it, and throw popcorn at the screen from all the BS.
Yeah.
But Red Flag was okay, but Top Gun was certainly better done, in my opinion.
So, and you mentioned something a little earlier about intercepting things. Okay, so talk about what it was like intercepting Bear bombers, but you also have PaveTac video of you intercepting a Russian Soviet surface action group.
It was actually Yak 28. Yak 28. We had. We remember that because we were a PaveTac unit, they would send us out when the Novorossiysk fleet would come out of Vladivostok, and the Novorossiysk was their carrier, the only carrier they had in Westpac, and it would come. It was based out of Vladivostok, and it was one. At the time I was there, for the only time they actually sailed out of Novorossiysk with a bunch of ships with it supporting it. And they were going to go down to Cameron Bay, and of course the Navy is basically tracking them the entire time. Well, there was a dead zone where the Navy wanted to continue coverage, but we didn't. I guess they didn't have the legs to do all that at that time. Certainly they normally do. Maybe they didn't have P3s. The P3s were there, but we went up. They said, "Look, PACAF, we got a frag, operational frag." So hey, we need you to go up there in the middle of the night. Like we're talking about 1 to 4 o'clock in the morning,
Oh, shit.
And we want you to go up there with the PaveTac pods and get video of everything that's on that Novorossiysk carrier, And so we did. We took up probably 4 different two ships with PaveTac, and we just went right to the ships. Not like even with the F4 radar, which isn't great for ground mapping, but it does a respectable job for a fighter at the time. And the DMAS birds were even better with the digital system.
Yeah,
it's not hard at 200 miles or 100 miles to go pick up a ship of that size, especially a big ship that's got a lot of little dots right next to it. So you're going to find this thing, not a problem. So we timed it pretty well, found them, flew off the coast of the Philippines, and we basically start videoing, circling around the ship. Well, just like us, they don't like anybody hanging around their battle groups. So the one thing I noticed right away, even though my head was stuck in the scope there, getting as much video as I can. And of course, you've got a few things that the weapons guys wanted you to take pictures of in certain parts of the boat. And so we would zoom in on that. Of course, we're recording everything. So we're doing that, and you could see that they had Yak 38s that were on the deck, and 1 or 2 actually just hovered and came off the deck. Well, okay, fine, let them go, and still take your videos as we're going out there. The other thing I noticed right away was that our RAW was coming right off the hinges. I mean, I've never seen that. They had probably every attack radar on the Novorossiysk, not to mention all the other ships, literally had us dead to rights. I mean, they had us all locked up, and they were lighting us up pretty good. So now, when you're flying on a PaveTac pod, that's 45 units of non-jettisonable drag, and it weighs about 4,800 pounds. Okay, so you're not gonna survive anything. They shoot at you. The best you can do is just wave because you're done. But anyway, so we're doing that, and my nose gunner goes, "Hey, Coma."
Nose gunner. That would be pilot.
Yeah. Anyway, he says, I'm in the scope, right, and I'm taking these videos. And he says, "Hey, Coma, take a look at this." I said, "I'm a little busy right now." He says, "No, you need to look at this." And I came out of the scope and looked up and to my right, and there's this Yak 38, and he's sitting right next to us.
Oh, really?
And he's, of course, he's waving, trying to tell us to go away. It's the middle of the night, so you can barely see him. So what do? Well, I just bring the pod and bring the head of the paved tack pod, and I don't light this guy up. I'm not flashing laser or anything, but I'm just basically videotaping this.
Yeah, yeah.
And those were the videotapes that you were able to acquire later on, years later.
Yeah. They're asking if they can see the video, and I'm like, actually, we do have that.
I actually have a copy of those.
He has a copy, and I have a copy. I'll put them up sometime.
But anyway, so either way, he actually flies in front of us, our nose, really tight. And I just followed through the whole thing. And the pave tack video has a crosshair, which is just a marker for the center of the video. It's not a lead computing site or anything.
Yeah.
And it actually, so you got this thing basically brushing our nose off, trying to get us to stop. And we stayed there until we started going to get the Joker fuel, and then we came back, and the next crew just took it over and followed them the rest of the day. They ended up sailing down to where they were going, which was Cameron Bay. And so we got a lot of pretty good video, but that was pretty interesting. In contrast, when I was at the feeds, we spent quite a few times on alert. And because you would always, probably 1 out of 3 times you're going to launch on alert, you're going to pick up a badger or a bear just off the coast. And what they would do is come out of Vladivostok, get to about 38 parallel, and then immediately turn west towards the peninsula. And we would launch.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's just a single ship, but we would launch. Now, you go, okay, so what? Well, here's what they're doing, guys. As soon as they turn in, they hack the clock. They want to know how long does it take us to launch? Where are we going to launch from, with which squadrons? What search radars are we going to use? What frequencies are we on? All that. I mean, they're gathering data.
Yeah.
They'll come in, and then we'll start flying across to pick them up. And of course, Blue Boy or Red Top, which were the primary
radars,
ground control intercept area, the control authorities right there, would give us some snap vectors. We'd pick them up, and as soon as we picked them up, they would know, that we would immediately start changing our frequencies, and they would either go back south or go out to blue water and get away from us, because a bear at altitude can move. That is a fast bomber.
Really?
Oh yeah, it can move, and he knows he can run you out of gas.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because he knows. They realized at this time in 1982, when I was at Osan, I mean, the Shah, the Iranians had airplanes, and I'm sure there were some. I think they had several F4s already. The Russians did.
Yeah.
They had us pretty well compromised. At least they had the APQ-120 radar compromised.
Yeah.
And I was to find that out later. Personally, up close and personal.
Yeah.
Because I chased one bear out in the water, and we were closing on him, but he was moving so fast that by the time we got to him, when we'd be so far over the water, we didn't have enough gas to get back up. Of course, we didn't have tanker support back then, so we just said, okay.
No tankers at Osan, no tankers in the peninsula.
But Second Lieutenant Coma, who thought he was all a big badass at that time because he's flying an F4, did not realize just how compromised the F4 was at that time. So I did the stupid thing. I locked him up because I was getting tired of manually tracking this guy. So I locked him up, and he turned my radar beam back on me. And next thing I know, my radar klystron blew up. I wouldn't say blow up. It flashed, and it went dead. And he played. Actually, before that happened, my aim dot, which is a indicator on our radar, which if you use that aim dot to center it, it'll gives you a pure collision course. Attitude with whatever your target is. So that aim dot tends to move slowly because of the distances and the speeds, relative speeds of the aircraft. Well, that's not what mine did. Mine looked like a UFO was flying. It went up, it went across, it made a big circle, and then poof, my whole scope went gone. And I went, whoa. That's when I knew that Mikey was not the biggest fish in the ocean. And that's a very humbling feeling. Really.
So he just sent your trons right back at
Oh
you.
yeah,
And blew
well, he's
everything
got
out.
more power. I mean, a bigger airplane.
Oh yeah,
He's got
yeah,
two generators
yeah,
to do
he's got
it.
generators
Every
like
one of his
that.
motors probably has enough generator power to blow up an F4.
One or two generators each.
So anyway, he basically wiped out my radar, and I had to go explain that to my crew chief as to why his radar was now dead. You know, and when we came back home. So again, it wasn't like there was not much going on in Westpac. There was a lot going on in Westpac. The problem was everybody on the media, all they cared about was Yasser Arafat and what was going on in the Middle East at that time. But it was fascinating. It was an amazing tour of duties, both of those. And I probably had a much more fulfilling time with the 10 years I spent in the Air Force because I started at number one in a tip of the spear type command like PACAF. And I think the youth safety guys probably would agree with me because they were playing the same type of games with Keflavik with the F4 unit there. Of course, later on F-15s.
Yeah. I think the greatest learning experience and flying experience I had in the KC-135, Mike, was when I was at Gideon.
Oh, I can
doing things like this, and although we didn't have the Bear bombers and stuff going by all the time, we had the ships going by, and the F-15s would take off with the RC or the RF-4s, okay, and run with them, okay, and then finally they just F-15s would go out and take a look and then come back. That was basically it. But man, there was times when Kim Il Sung died, we launched 14 F-15s, 3 tankers, AWACS, RC-135 to go up there because we didn't know what he was going to do. Well, the same thing was happening when you were there.
He would do that every now and then. He would basically take 30,000, 35,000 troops and he would move them immediately to the border. And try to understand, the border had several very large tunnels that went underneath the border all across the peninsula. Yeah. And these were invasion tunnels that the North Koreans had dug. Yeah. And they dug right to and even beyond underneath the borderline. And these were not tunnels like you could walk in. These were tunnels like you could drive a deuce and a half in them. Oh, jeez. And they were that big. And when the North Koreans would hear them, they would use sounding equipment and other means to go discover these. And it wouldn't surprise me that they're still building them today.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so when they would discover one, they would actually counterbore a small tunnel and send in a special operations team down there, and they would have this little fight down in the tunnel. Then both sides, when they were out of ammunition, would go to the respective sides, and then the South Koreans would build a wall out of concrete with just a little hole there and an M60 and no kidding, a bird cage. We went down in and looked at them, and they had a gas mask and a phone. We're talking about a landline phone, so that they couldn't be jammed. And his job was literally to just hold them off and make a phone call until he died. To let them know that that there was a
here
breach.
They come.
Yeah, that was his job. You think your job sucks? Yeah, let me tell you. Now, of course, the parakeet's job, as you can all figure out, was in case they try to use gas first. Yeah, he would at least notice parakeet's dead. There's gas here. Yeah, before I died. So it was interesting. Again, this is an interesting time. And I'm sure there's all kinds of things like that, probably even far more sophisticated now. Yeah. Because that was 1982. I mean, we're talking 40 years.
I know. Isn't that crazy?
It's hard to believe.
40 years, man.
Hard to believe.
And we're still dealing with that.
It's not a safe world out there.
As we're learning. So, let's talk about F-22s, man.
Okay, the F-22.
As much as you can.
The F-22 is the biggest, baddest airplane in the world today. And it's been around for now 23 years operationally. So I got out of the Air Force, and the reason I got out of the Air Force was really George Bush. I loved the Air Force. I mean, I was having a great time. And I'd have been happy just being in the cockpit for 20 years, but I was wing scheduling officer, and they wanted me to go to Air Training Command or Allergic to Combat Command, and be an instructor there. And I had a follow-on assignment to go to Seymour to be in Strike Eagles. Right around 10 years when I was coming up on the 04 board, and George Bush was trying to balance the budget at the time. Here's where geopolitics interferes with your greatest plans. And the way he's going to do that, he'd already made the statement, no new taxes. So where's he going to get the money? He was going to take it away from the military, and he was going to cut the military to post-World War II levels.
Yeah.
That phrase right there was enough to make me go, okay. Now, Coma's a pretty stupid guy, but he's not that stupid, okay? I could see, I was an aerospace engineering graduate. I was into what was coming down the pipe all the time. And what was coming down the pipe at the time? B-2 coming down, no nav. C-17s coming down. They weren't operational yet at that time, no nav.
No nav.
F-15s were no nav, and Strike Eagles were few and far between back then at that time.
Yeah.
We're going to reduce the number of Wizzos there.
Yeah.
We're going to get rid of the F-4s. There's a whole culture full of Wizzos that we're going to have to find something else, most of which are going to be rated stuff. And of course, you start realizing, this is kind of a dying community, at least in your mind you are.
Yeah.
Now, I wasn't at that time. We didn't foresee what they were going to start doing with the CISOs and all that. But I can only go with what I can see. Yeah. So I figured, okay, now's the time to probably, if you're not going to be in the front seat, now's the time to probably pull the triggers and resign your commission. So I turned down the 04 board, and 3 days later, luck would have it, Saddam Hussein attacks Kuwait, and the whole world changes. Okay. Yeah. And of course, now they need guys with paved tack and
all the experience
and sniper
that you
pod
have.
experiences, and everything I had as an instructor or an IWIZO that I'd have was exactly what they wanted. And of course, the first one I was supposed to go to after I got through the upgrade course with the Strike Eagles was the 336 at Seymour.
The Rocketeers.
Yeah, the very first Air Force under unit to deploy for Desert Shield. You know? Yeah. So my life would have been taking a whole different world at that point. So anyway, MPC says, no, we've already processed your paperwork. This won't take that long. This won't last forever anyway. So it's fine. I'm out. I got picked up by Lockheed Martin. My interview with Lockheed Martin lasted 15 minutes. I mean, you figure you got a fighter background, aerospace engineer with 10 years experience in the service. And so
you moved in the right direction.
So basically I get picked up on what used to be their black program, which was the F-22 development program. It had just started. They just got the contract after winning the fly-off between the YF-23 and the YF-22. And so I got picked up to be a senior systems engineer and requirements manager for the F-22 program, development program, what they call the EMD, Engineering Manufacturing Development Program. The purpose of that program is to take the prototype that they won with and turn it into a production-ready, fully operational fighter weapon system that meets all the requirements on budget and on time. That's their game. Yeah. They got 10 years to do it. Okay, this is 1990. They're supposed to have a first operational jet going, in production, going down the line by 2000. That was the original schedule. That was wild. Now I was made the requirements manager. The purpose of the requirements manager was to make sure that all the contractual requirements were distilled down into the different integrated product teams, the avionics teams, the weapons teams, the structures teams, all that, so they can design the aircraft to meet all of the contractual requirements. Yeah. And then from that, we had to allocate those properly down to the individual suppliers, everything from tires and tubes and to avionics systems to motors, to you name it. Anyway, and make sure those were actually properly allocated and derived so that they knew what they had to do in order to roll that into the subsystem and work together. And that includes software, which software was a new game, pretty much a new game at that point.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, now you're talking about taking an aircraft that has far better aerodynamic capabilities than, let's say, an F-16 or an F-15, and cram a lot of stuff in there, so it's like flying. It's like two crate supercomputers. You know, they can pull way over 9 Gs, sustain, go supersonic, and still be stealthy and not be seen, and still have enough growth capability to add more later on. And so it was pretty, and of course it was scratched. It was not, we're going to take something and modify it. It was clean sheet of paper.
Clean sheet of paper.
And
very clean.
This was 14 hours, 12 to 14 hour days for literally 5 years. The whole team. And yeah, you can't say enough about the F-22's development team, because it was Boeing, General Dynamics, Aerospace, Lockheed Martin together as a team with Pratt and Whitney, who won the motor contest between the two. And
monster motors.
Oh yeah. And so anyway, that became the F-22 program, and I stayed with that for 7 years until first flight, and then went on to another program. But that was extremely informative as far as being able to integrate into the aerospace engineering world. And I'm blessed. All I got to say is to be able to make that trip term and get into a program like that was like launching into space.
Oh yeah.
Now, first time I saw the requirements baseline for the F-22, of course my perspective is when I'm looking at the thrust to weight curves, the P/S curves, performance curves, and which are classified at the time, I'm relating them to the F4. Well, the F-16 was heads above to the F4. Well, this made the F-16 look like a toy, and it still does.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at this thing thinking, man, if we hit all these numbers, this is going to be one hell of an air show jet.
Yeah.
And it is. If you're going to see one, it's impressive.
Yeah. And if you guys have seen some of the videos I put out and seen videos of the F-22 in an air show, it's just freaking amazing. Okay.
Yeah. When
those nozzles go like this, and that thing literally just swaps ends, and then that pedal turn thing that it does where it's a falling leaf. I mean, it's just incredible to watch.
Oh yeah. F4 would be falling out of the sky, and that would be all over. You'd be popping a chute, stick forward, hailing to rudder neutral. If not recovered, basically keep butts out of the jets, what you're going to do.
Oh man.
Falling leaf, that's the bad thing for an F4. But the F-22, I mean, it does. I used to actually take my time off for lunch, and of course, I had the clearances to do that, given the position it was in at the time. And I would go over to the simulator and fly the F-22.
You didn't tell me that. I didn't know that.
Oh, it was a joy to fly. It was the easiest thing to fly. You didn't need training. It literally was, because you could get it so slow.
Yeah.
And with just the thrust weight, right, you could get so slow, you get down slow and just bring the power. F4 was like taking off and landing in a space shuttle. You better be on speed and on attitude, or you're going to be hurt. You don't get slow. You get low and slow in the turn with an F4 or T-38. You're in a world of hurt.
Yeah.
Well, there's no coffin box in F-22. You just cob the power, bring your nose up, and fly right out of it and try it again. I mean, it's just, I don't care if you're almost dead stop, you just cob the power.
Yeah.
And
you fly out.
Fly out of it. You just fly right out of it. And
that's wild.
And it's pretty impressive. And not only is it fun. I mean, it was easy to start the F-22.
Yeah.
The sequence. It takes about. Oh gosh, I would estimate about 8.5 minutes, 9 minutes to get an F4 with the crew chiefs, with the, strapping in for alert. You're already there. Think about that. Just get on the runway and take off. F-22. I won't tell you the number, but I can tell you it's a whole lot.
It's quick. Yeah, it's quick. You got a question here. What do you both think of the F-47? Why don't you start that since you're the fighter guy?
Okay, I'll be honest with you. I don't know anything about the F-47. I barely know what it looks like in shape because they've kept it. They've kept it fairly mystical so far.
Yeah.
I do know that it's going to be the F-22 started something that changed the air order battle. F-4's air order battle was pretty much World War II and Korea with missiles, and we're talking about guided missiles, radar. They're meant to be able to do BVR, but as we all know, geopolitical constraints often mitigate that advantage that you have.
Yeah.
F-15 fixed some of that, but they still had the geopolitical issues with shooting beyond range, and now they were able to work the process in the air order battle so that the ABCCC, between all the other sources, AWACS, you have the ability to clear an area out fairly well so you can shoot BVR and get the better capabilities of the AIM-7Fs and later on the AMRAAMs. But the F-22 comes in, and of course the F-35 picked up a lot of what the F-22 had brought into the game. Uber classified at the time, and that is essentially what they call sensor track fusion. Now, sensor track fusion is an integrated way of saying we can track and automatically calculate priorities, and you don't have to do a lot of work.
Yeah.
The difference that a lot of people weren't aware of is they also have interactive data link, so that what you see, others can see also.
Got it.
Now, with the current day, you're getting into weapon sharing. And this is basically because you know what the Chinese are going to do. The Chinese and the Russians are going to take their old airplanes, and they're not going to mothball them forever. They're going to bring them up, and they're going to try to get you to deplete your all your missiles first.
Quantity.
Then they'll bring in their heavies to go try to pick you up and take you out.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, how are you going to deal with that? Well, you can deal that with drones. You can deal that with weapon sharing. That basically means what? It means you can carry a certain amount of missiles. You're stealthy. They can't see you. You're fast. You have a lot of range. The F-22 brought that in. I think the F-35 will probably bring that into it.
Yeah.
I think it will probably double down on the whole air order or battle where everybody sees what everybody else is saying. They're going to pick up what the F-35 and F-22 are doing. And then I suspect that they're probably going to do a lot of weapon sharing where you can pretty much target 200 people out there with one jet, and you don't have to have 200 missiles on board because you have B-52s, B-2s, B-1s, and other
and now drones
that are all
collaborative, the
correct.
combat collaborative vehicles.
You know, you can basically lock them up with a finger push, and next thing you know, you can fire all of them. You know, so I suspect that they're not looking for a dogfighter, even though I think they're probably going to keep the dogfight capability. That I don't know. It depends on the philosophy of the air order battle. And that's the part that I'm out of the game for so long now. I don't know how they're doing the air order battle scenario, and that's going to reflect in what the requirements are, the tactical requirements are in the F-47.
Yeah.
The old scare about whether they're going to take the pilot out of the cockpit, I don't see that. I can see you'll have less human bodies up there because you're going to augment a lot of that with drones, reception, and with weapons carrying and all that jamming.
Yeah.
But you can't fully take the pilot out of the cockpit or the crew, the CISO either, because it's such an intensive and constantly changing battlefield. And what you do one day, once they figure out what you did to counteract what they're doing, they're going to make changes. Yeah. So there has to be somebody on site that's going to be able to recognize, hey, this has just changed. Oh, by the way, there's something just appeared here that you guys have never seen before.
Battlefield dynamics.
You know, there comes a point where there are limits that a bunch of sensor platforms out there will not be able to pick up, that the human mind will be able to adjust to much more quickly. So I think it's going to be an uber weapons platform, sensor platform with some combat capability to be able to dogfight a little bit so you can get out of there. In other words, you can survive. I don't think it's going to be meant for just like the F-35. Everybody talks about how it's not as great as an F-22. Well, the requirements baseline for the F-35 was never meant to be an F-22. It's really it's really something that came out of the high-low mix doctrine of the 1985s when they were doing the concept documents. And that was going to be, that was really a follow-on from the high-low mix of the 1970s, which resulted in the F-15 and F-16.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now you go to the F-22 and what became the JSF and later the F-35. The F-35 is really more of an F-117 on steroids. It's an attack airplane. It's not really a dogfighter. It was never meant to be. And I actually was an auditor with Lockheed of the F-35 program, the systems engineering program. So I'm quite familiar with what the requirements basis was supposed to be.
All right, let me see if we got some more questions. Good evening, Sir Gentlemen. I'm driving, so I won't be able to come on. Oh, hey, Michelle. How are you? All right, from the original F-22 to the current version, looks like you guys took a straight razor and cleared up all the radar cross-section. Not sure what you mean. Go ahead.
You're talking about the clean loft lines, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, the F-22, notice there's one thing it does not have is a lot of antennas sticking out all over it.
Yeah.
Pitot tubes, antennas, all that's gone. Why? Well, you can't be stealthy when you've got stuff like that sticking out. When you see canards, or when you see big cross-body flow wind vanes on the fuselage or something like that, you know what those are? Those are giant reflectors, okay? Long straight lines like you see on the B-2's leading edge. You better have a treatment for that because that's a big old beam that's going to come out. And so the loft lines are smooth for a good reason. That's for the stealth part of it. It also minimizes drag quite a bit. Yeah. But you'll find that the way F-22 gets around that is they embed the antennas into the skin of the aircraft.
Excellent.
And the tails that's not classified anymore.
Because that's a really smooth airplane. There are very little
uber smooth.
There are very few extending probes or anything like that.
Oh no, you're not going to see it either. In fact, they actually have to put when they're flying around red flag and all that. They actually have to put something out there so they can the people who are tracking them can see them.
You can see them. I know. I've seen those little trapezoid things on like the F-117.
Yeah, if you want to be seen, they can deploy stuff or they can hang something on there temporarily. But when they're going to battle, they're pretty clean. Yeah. The problem with the F-22, which is not really a problem, it was a learning evolved. It was the coats, the RCS coating were first generation that are just coming right off of the F-117.
I didn't think of that.
And every time you open a panel up for maintenance, then you got to reseal it all. And it was very time consuming, and that was that added a lot of logistical costs to it. F-35 was a little better. They'd learned from the F-22 experience, and so it's a little bit better than that. And I would imagine that the logistical capabilities for the F-47 now are probably going to go take that to another level too. Yeah. And we're always constantly doing that now. But what does that mean? The strategic value, the tactical value of that is logistically our maintenance guys can quick turn an airplane that you had to open up the panel to load weapons, to load bullets, to load gas, whatever, and close it up, and it'll seal it and still be stealthy. What about our enemies, China, Russia? Have they got to that level yet? I suspect not yet. Okay. What does that mean? Well, it means after the first, everybody may be stealthy, the first go, when you get the trip turn, which ones are going to be flying with panels that are beaconing out there? So, by the second, third go of the day, all of a sudden ours are still stealthy and theirs are pretty obvious who they are.
I got to say hello to somebody out there. The Candy Bomber Foundation is on. Pops, how you doing? Great to see you. Great to have you on. Says, hey, Sluggo, good to see you and Coma together again once more. He's been following me for a long time, so he's seen the first two we did years ago. Okay.
So let me see what else we got. Story, you go to sleep.
He's heard the whole story. How many B-21s do you think they'll build? That's an interesting question.
I don't know. Who's got any bomber guys that are experts on this?
Yeah, coming from SAC, here's what I've noticed though about the B-21 though, Mike, and you can help me with this because you're an engineer. The second one's been delivered now.
Yep.
It's got twin wheels, not twin tandem wheels, so that means it's not carrying a lot of weight.
Yeah.
It's got a center line, basically a center weapons bay. Okay. So, who knows how much
it is a notably smaller aircraft.
It is a notably smaller
than
aircraft
the B-2.
Than the B-2. Noticeably smaller.
Mm-hmm.
All right. The inlets are like almost teardrop. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
And there's only 4 windows. The 2 in front and 2 to the sides. And that's it.
Well, you realize windows, canopies.
Yeah.
There's a reason the F-22's canopies are yellow. I have a yellow tint to it.
Mm-hmm.
That's so the radar doesn't go through the glass, bounce back with all the stuff that's in.
Yeah, that's in the side.
The more windows you have, the more problematic it is to try to keep it.
Yeah.
And so there's ways to get around that, but it's very expensive. And the more portals you put there, then it's harder to keep it. And of course, one of the biggest, most important things that the B-2 and B-21 are going to have is stealth. I mean, there's a reason they don't have tails.
Yeah.
And and so that doesn't surprise me that they're pretty well locked down like that. And I think a lot of that has to do with stealth, and a lot of it has to do with potentially radar emissions going out, and maybe even visual blanking for nuclear strikes. I don't know, but it is pretty slick. I mean, it's absolutely.
And you notice like the leading edges around it and everything are completely different too, and it's got kind of the same shape, but not really. And you can see these little like diamonds all underneath it. When you look at some of the pictures, there's some really interesting things going on. People are like, this is kind of cosmic. Did Area 51 have something to do with this?
I don't know about that, but I think there's a lot that you learn. Shapes matter.
Yeah.
Okay. When it comes to reflecting energy, and long straight lines are, it's no bueno, and so jagged lines are no bueno. So shapes at specific angles tend to reflect far less than others.
Got it.
Shapes that reflect in such a way that they're reflecting exactly the same frequency pattern as an oncoming. Like for instance, that's what the tiles are certain ways. And I'm not an expert on this, so I'll just say that you can cancel each other out. You ever looked at waves in water?
Yeah.
When they come in, if they're exactly the same amplitude, the same frequency, then guess what? They tend to cancel each other out. Okay, well, same type of principle you're gonna see, and that's why those shapes. That's why they put the tiles that way. Now, to be able to calculate that by hand, it's not going to happen. You end up with an F-117 because it's
too much math.
But we've got supercomputers now that can do that very quickly and to give you the compound shape you want. What's going to be the best, shape for the tiles, and the panels.
Wayne Rowe wants to know, how did you get the call sign Coma?
Yeah, you had to ask. You're in a tactical world. You're in the military in general. Every call sign you get has a story behind it.
Yep. And that's what he wants to know. He wants to know yours.
So I told you that I got there when I was, pretty green, and I didn't know what the traditions were. All I wanted to do was get in the cockpit and get in the game. Well, the squadron, the Fiends, they welcome all the new guys, which are called green beans. When you go there, remote, you're a green bean. When you get there, when you leave, you're a brown bean, right? Well, all the brown beans gather together, and the whole squadron gets together, and we're all wearing red party suits, which is our squadron colors.
Yeah, I'm looking at that over there.
We go downtown, and so to make a long story short, that has a purpose. Not only do you get to know the rest of the squadron real quick in a big party, And this party goes from one bar to another bar to another bar to another bar, right? And but it's also showing you the town, and then your flight commander can sit with you and say, okay, don't go down that alley. This part of town's okay. That part's the bad part of town. Don't go there. And so it's a way to get you oriented real fast. And they have all the green beans there, which in our case we had 3 of them, and they had about 3 or 4 brown beans, which were leaving, and they're there, so they're going to celebrate them leaving.
Yeah.
And send them off, and then so basically that's it. So we're having this base party, and you got to understand, I've only been in that base 3 days, and I just had this long flight over, and I'm on the schedule now, flying a lot, so I'm not getting a lot of sleep, and I'm tired.
Yeah,
I'm really tired.
Yeah.
We go to each bar, and we're in our party suits, and we're singing the squadron songs and all that. We're having a good time. Well, they have this mug, okay, that they give you. And I'll show you what it looks like. Okay. You can get these anywhere in Korea, but it looks like this. All right. It's got a stick on there, it's cool mug. Well,
and it's big.
It's big brass mug, and guess what?
It's big.
That's what you're drinking your booze out of. All right. So every time we go to a bar, somebody in the captain's mafia in the squadron will give a toast to the new guy, and you have to match that toast, right? So they fill this thing up with this thing called soju, which is like golden grain alcohol, but you don't know just how good it is.
And somebody asked about that.
Yeah. Anyway,
soju.
You mix soju with peachy Oscar, which is like a wine that's tastes like, I don't know, some god awful mess. And then some ice, and then guess what? You do as a toast to the new guy. You have to match the toast. You have to pound this whole thing in one sitting, and then to prove that you have drank everything, you tip it on the top of your head, and not a single drop should fall out, right? Well, after about the 4th or 5th bar you go to, you pounded about 4 or 5 of these, and each one of the captains, it's a different captain, they pounded 1. So right about midnight, Mikey, Second Lieutenant Mikey, the only second lieutenant in the squadron, is now plastered. And I'm not a wild drunk, I'm a sleepy drunk. So I figured, what the heck? I'm tired. I'm going to go over while they're all singing one side of the bar. I'm going to put a bunch of chairs together, and I'm going to lay down.
Oh, no.
So I lay down. I'm just sitting there.
I know where this is going.
I'm not really wiped out yet. I can still hear them singing, but all I want to do is go to sleep. Well, my squadron commander, or my flight commander comes in. His name is Mike Hazenfield. They call him Bugs. Bugs Hazenfield is in the Monster back in the old movies. So Bugs basically walks by and goes, "Man, that guy looks comatose." Okay, now it just so happened that was playing on the base theater was this movie called Coma, which is about body snatching, starring beautiful French actress named Genevieve Bujold, and their body snatch taking organs. Well, guess what? That's all they watched because everybody knew it. Everybody's seen it because there's nothing else to do.
Yeah.
On base on a remote tour.
Yeah.
And so all the captains sat around and go, "Oh, Coma," and I'm going, "What are you talking about? I don't understand what you're talking about." So basically, that's how I got the name Coma. So all you guys start a new squadron. Be careful what you're doing because the captain's mafia will give you a call sign. You may not like it, but it was easy to say on the radio, so it was great. When you're running intercepts, it was easy to get on the radio and use Coma. There are worse names, trust me.
Yeah.
So that's the story.
There's on the f16.net website, they actually have, I think the tab says call sign.
Yeah.
And it's all the stories of how people got their call sign, okay? And it's hilarious.
Oh,
okay?
I'll bet they are.
And some of them are, as you well know, are very politically incorrect.
Oh yeah.
Okay, and would never go over. Probably now, okay, but back when you and I are flying, it was an open You know,
Oh, yeah.
It didn't matter if you were a guy or a gal. You know, we had the first gal F-15 pilot at our place. Okay, and
Oh yeah, that makes a bigger difference.
big difference. Okay,
We didn't have women in tactical positions at the time. I was still there.
Yeah,
They started coming in the '90s early '90s when I was leaving. But at least for the Fiends and the Hooters, the Pegu guys, as well as the Osan guys, the call signs tended to be 2-syllable because we actually use those for real.
Yeah.
We would take off in a flight of 4, and we'd Mustang 21, 22, 23, 24. But you get by the border, and they would actually start coming on the radios with much more powerful transmissions and start trying to spook you into turning north. You know, Mustang 22 come left, 360, and try to get you to come over, shoot you down, and then be able to claim an incident or whatever.
Yeah.
And so what we would do is we would actually use our call signs when we wanted to talk to each other in earnest. And it would just stay, because we were very close with the guy, the GCI controllers at Mangelson, which are Blue Boy, and then the Red Top guys too. We actually partied with them. So they knew our voice and they knew our call signs. And they would just come online if they could hear the same media going on, and just to make sure you guys weren't fooled, they would say, Coma, in this regard. Well, I would know that guy. I know that guy's voice, so I know when he talks, I'm going to hear him. And if he knows my call sign, then I'm probably going to listen to him. I'm not going to listen to somebody else. Okay. And same thing happened in flight. That's how so we use tactical call signs. And the reason, so basically our call signs were a little more legit. It was less vulgar. In fact, none of them that I can think of. They were normally 2 syllables. And because they know that we were going to actually use those call signs in real life when we were out there running our intercepts.
F16.net, like I said, has some really fabulous stories on, and you got to understand, folks, too. This goes for the women too. You know, they may get one that like their last name is Constanza and it's like canine, okay? But there's an F-18 gal. Her call sign was Sumat. Shut up, men are talking. She kept interrupting them all the time. Okay, she'd come up to a group of men and they were in the ready room and say, and she just kind of break in and start talking and everything like that. So she got the call sign Sumat. Shut up, men are talking.
Well, it's funny how a lot of guys get some really strange call signs. We had one young guy who was tall and thin, and he, first tour, and he wanted to be called Snake. Because that's a cool name, Snake. And there are rules. We have a hog log, which you can write anything in it, but you cannot. Hog log or doofer book, it's whatever. Every squadron had them, and you can write whatever you want in there, but you had to have had a call sign first. Also, there was other rules which you can't do, but he would write in there. He didn't have a call sign. He'd write in there, stuff in the hog log. Well, that was very frowned on. And so, as a general rule of protocol, it was pretty much anybody could recommend a call sign for this whoever that was they were going to do. But it would be only the squadron commander or the operations officer that could christen you with that call sign.
Yeah.
And normally you would do it when we're going down on a bill run or where we're having a squadron get together or whatever. And they'd make an affair out of it, And so they called this one guy up after a couple of weeks, and the guys who are the worst at this, and they're pretty creative, are the captains. They've had a couple of tours under their belt, and they know the rules, they know the group, and they tend to know each other anyway.
Yeah.
So they're the guys that you don't want to piss off.
Yeah.
And the colonel at the time, the ops officer at the time was Lieutenant Colonel Gunnar Helsley. And Gunnar ended up becoming PACAF DO later on in years. But Gunnar calls him up and says, okay, Lieutenant, I can't remember this guy's name, come on up. Neil, Lieutenant, right in front. Of course, everybody is around there in the squadron ops. Drinking. We're drinking this flight. It's the end of the day. And everybody's rowdy up there. And he says, Lieutenant here, we understand, would like to have the call sign Snake. and all you hear, or you can hear on the cap is ooh. That's not a good sign. That's not a good sign. He says, I understand he's been writing on the Doofer book. Ooh. You know, and he lists all these offenses, you know, but he's done.
Yep.
It says, so you take the squadron sword or whatever, and it says, we shall dub thee Worm. That was his call sign. Worm.
Worm.
Okay, so again, you might want to know the rules of the game and don't just walk in there and try to.
That's hilarious.
Self-naming was very frowned upon in the fighter squadron.
Yep.
And that was a good example of how call sign was made, but you know, also what not to do. You know, when you're in a fighter squadron, it was. But you look back on those days. I didn't particularly like my call sign when I first got it, but it's the old adage: you make the name. The name doesn't make you, right?
Yeah.
If you're good, your bad call sign could become famous.
Yeah.
And I mean, look at Mooch. What's that?
Yeah.
He's got a great call sign now because this guy performed and everybody knows him. He did well. He knows his shit.
Absolutely.
So yeah. I mean, it was. Now I look at it and I'm very comfortable with Coma.
I have been in a location where they actually had a renaming.
Oh, really?
Yep.
What's the story?
Targets were vehicles, and he sees them in the lantern pod. And he's nope, they're vehicles. Drops on them. All right, 2 GBU-12s, 500-pound bombs. Okay,
Yeah.
On this group of vehicles, and as the bombs are getting closer, all the heads of the cows went like this. His new call sign was bovine.
Bovine.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yep.
Yeah, if the shoe fits.
The shoe fits. And one of the Tanker Weapons School grads I met, he's a colonel at the Niagara Falls.
Mm-hmm.
His was CUDA, CUDA. Okay. And wasn't about fish. Wasn't about fangs. He went into a Mexican restaurant in San Diego, Casa Guadalajara. Mm-hmm. Really, really great place to eat. Okay, very famous place to eat.
Right.
And he goes in there kind of like Jose Jimenez, Hello, we are here to drink your margaritas and have your burritos and play with this, senoritas and all this kind of stuff. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And all the other guys are like going, ooh, we don't know this guy. Okay. And they're all like backing up and everything like that. All right. And they went to some other place, like a German place or something like that. And he was doing the same thing, like in some kind of German voice, German culture and everything, And so it came to this call sign night. And they put up there, your call sign shall be CUDA. And they're all like,
what is that?
And he's all like, what? Culturally unaware dumbass. Culturally unaware dumbass. Okay. CUDA.
Well, like I said, you get a bunch of guys together and they can get to be pretty creative.
Yeah, really creative. Let me see what else we got here. Long, short. For the females. Hey, Worm. Yeah. Soju. Wayne wants to know what soju is.
Yeah, soju is like I said, the closest thing I could think of soju was basically golden grain alcohol, a form of, but the quality controls at the time, probably better now. This is 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Quality control. You could get drinking soju and it would be like water. It's clear. You mix it with other things to make a drink of choice.
Yeah.
Mix it with
Kool-Aid or whatever.
Juice,
yeah, lime juice, whatever.
It's like when they used to make purple Jesuses years ago.
Yeah.
Anyway, and so, but you could drink, one drink and you wouldn't even notice it, or you could just drink it and it would just knock you on your butt. The quality control was really. But anyway, every bar had
alcohol content.
Everybody had soju,
yeah.
And it's basically Korean booze.
Yeah.
Korean golden grain is what I call it.
Yeah.
And it's still there now. People still talk.
Oh, I know. And when I was there in the 90s and everything like that, we'd go up there. They had a thing called ammo bowls. Okay. And it was soju mixed with some other things. And like you said, sometimes the alcohol content was 2%. sometimes the alcohol content was 20%.
Mm-hmm.
And heaven forbid you get one of those 20% ammo bowls because you came out sick.
Absolutely.
You came out just absolutely.
Oh yeah,
you could knocked on your butt.
You could be in the base infirmary, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
With some of this stuff.
Yeah.
If not getting the runs, who knows what you
or
get.
something worse. But we had an incident in the squadron when I was in Okinawa where somebody got the 20% and was found out in the billeting hallway.
Well, we had Korea at the time. We would have a certain percentage of the squadron, new guys, that were not used to what's in the water, that would get the crud. And some of them so bad that they would be in the infirmary for a couple of days.
Oh, man.
And, the NIF.
It was the same way in Turkey, man.
Yeah.
And you know what? The flight docs might told us. It's not if, it's just when, okay?
Yeah.
And most of you will get it within the first week, okay? But you're going to be down for at least 48 hours, all right? And they had a name for it, okay?
Okay.
SMA, okay? Crappy monkey ass.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And you were just running to the bathroom, And like I said, everybody would get it because everybody went downtown to eat and drink, okay? Eat the Turkish food, drink the Turkish beer and everything, except for me. I don't drink. And but I still got it, all right?
Yeah.
And it's just because the food is just processed differently in a lot of these places we go.
Let's face it, not only is it processed differently, but let's say you're drinking water, ice water. What kind of water are they using to make the ice? It's in there. It's there.
Exactly.
So you're going to get it.
Yeah.
And and so that was kind of the problem we had with some of it. I never got it because for me, I was born in the Philippines. And for the first 6 years of my life, I was, my dad was from Florida, but he was over there.
Yeah.
So until we moved back to the States, heck, we ate and drank everything that was there. And so I probably had the microbes to still fight this stuff already. So for me, I never had a problem with it. But there's some people that got really, really sick.
Hey, tell everybody the story of your dad.
Well, my dad came out of Millen, Georgia.
Badass.
If you ever been,
badass, dude.
If you ever been in Millen, Georgia, I mean, this if you blink here,
this is a great story.
Yeah, you blink and you go through it. My dad graduated from high school at 17 years old, and immediately went down to be a welder, welding Liberty ships in 1942 in Savannah, Georgia. And he wanted to fly, but he didn't know how to do that. And one day, this general, I guess they were getting ready to go to North Africa, and he had a personal B-25 that was his private airplane, so to speak, and he wanted to have a metal tub around in the cockpit to protect him. So he asked my dad if he would came down to the shipyards and said, "Hey, you guys would be willing to, on your spare time, make a weld a metal tub for our cockpit?" He said, "Yeah, I'll do it." So he did. He helped him out, did it, put some steel plates in the cockpit, and the general was so happy about it. He says, "Hey, what can I do for you?" He said, "Well, I really want to go fly for the Army Air Corps. If you know anybody that can help me," because I sure can. And so that's how he got selected. From there, he went to be an air cadet. He went to the air cadet program and went all the way through the training. Started at Keesler, started at L3s, worked his way up. And while he was going through training back then, he went for about 2 hours. He went for about 2 years before they would let you into the war. Okay. So between 1943 and 1944, he was going through the entire syllabus of training, and he wanted to be a fighter pilot. And up until the point he was flying, he went through the AT-6s, had P-38 orientation, some P-40 orientation, and he was, I believe, down at Randolph, and they were still air cadets, because back in the old days, you didn't get your commissioning until you got your wings.
Yeah.
When you graduated Air Cadet Corps, that's when you got your commissioning and your wings.
Yep.
It's different than what it was today. And so they're still air cadets, and they're waiting in line for the chow line, and this senior air cadet gets in front of him because he wants to just get food early, I guess. Well, my dad decks this guy. He falls down the stairs and almost, gets put out of the program. And so they call him in and said, look, we can bounce you out of the program right now. You hit an upper officer,
Yeah.
you're not allowed to do that. And, but, we need bomber pilots. We need bomber pilots. So if you're willing to be a bomber pilot, we'll keep you in the program, but you're going to have to, you can forget about the fighters. And so he goes to the bomber program and goes to fly BT-13s, all that normal routine, ends up flying B-25s, some B-26 time, because back then they would give you orientation in all the different bombers. Ends up going to Liberal Kansas, flying B-24s, which he said was okay, but he wasn't real fond of them. And for all of you guys who know, that was the same bomber that guys like Jimmy Stewart flew.
Yep.
Okay. And then they move him over to B-29, and he flies. He goes to Roswell, New Mexico, to start getting orientation in B-29s. Get this mud up here, and from there ends up moving into the 420th Bomb Squadron, and I forgot the bomb group is, but part of the 8th Air Force as it's transitioning from Europe to the Pacific, still with Jimmy Doolittle in charge. And what they're doing is they're operating out of March Field at the time, and they move up to Hamilton, which was Marin County Airport. Now it's no longer there, which is right just north of the Golden Gate Bridge, and they were marshaling all these B-29s, flying them over to Hickam, and then from there to Guam, and then spreading them around where their bases were going to be, Iwo Jima and all that.
Yeah.
Okay. What they were getting ready for was the big push, or what was going to be the invasion of Japan. All right. Now, at that point, he is now a left-seater. He is a first lieutenant, and he's a left-seater aircraft commander on a B-29 that they're moving over to Guam, and he's 20 years old. And I got a picture of him with his crew.
Yeah, great picture.
That. And you just think about that. When I first realized, and it hit me, Dad, you're only 20 years old, and this is your crew on a B-29. That's like being 20.
Commander. Yeah,
it's like being an aircraft commander on a B-52 today.
At 20 years old.
At 20 years old.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a different time. I mean, a completely different time, and that tells you a lot about the caliber of people we had, young people we had back then. Yeah. I mean, these weren't guys walking around with nose rings and skateboards. Okay.
No,
the mall.
They were hardcore.
These are guys that were focused, and you have to really appreciate these guys.
Yeah. All right. Let me see what else we got here. My dad's father was an air cadet in Arizona. He flew with the Chinese pilots. Lady Be Good was a B-24. Yeah, good stuff. Any fun stories from the O Club at Osan?
I don't know about fun. I didn't realize that O Club was kind of a wild. Osan was kind of a Wild West town. I mean, Songtan Sea, which is the town right outside the gate. Osan back then was not Osan now. All right, Osan now was a civilized base. Over there, it was a wartime base. And I'm not saying it's not now. I'm just saying back then, it was pretty basic. For instance, the officers' club was really 5 Quonset huts that were welded together, and each wing was a dining room or a bunch of offices or whatever. Yeah. And whatever they made in the lobby, you walked in and that was their lobby, and then you made to the left Quonset hut, that was the bar, and to the right, well, that was the dining room, and and then you go down the hall and go down some stairs, which was covered, and then to a lower area, which was the quote back bar. Yeah. And on Fridays and Saturdays they had strippers. Okay. At the O Club. just so it was like I said,
It was a very different time period. Very
Now,
different time period.
but the rules still applied. So I remember walking in there. It was about 2 weeks after I got. In fact, it was right after I just got operational. I'm tired. I'm happy. I'm going to go to the bar, see what the guys are doing there. And I walk into the lobby, and I've got my flight cap on. I'm still sweating my sweaty flight suit, and I'm about to go to the bar. And I realize, okay, I'm not going to walk into that bar with my hat on, because if you do, and they see you in the bar, and somebody rings the bell,
you're done.
That means you buy a round for everybody in the bar. Okay, and on Friday night, believe me, there is a lot of people in the bar. So I'm walking in there, and just as I'm walking through the doorway, which is double door of the bar, I'm taking my hat off. Well, it's still touching my head as I'm stepping through the plane of the door. And you know damn well there's somebody there was watching this going,
absolutely.
He's got his hand on the rope on the bell of the bar, man. And as soon as I break that plane, as I'm taking my hat off, ding, you could hear it. And of course, everybody breaks up and applause. Hey, we got a free round, right? So note to self, take the hat off before you get in the building. And don't do that. Now, we did play deceased insect on a regular basis. I don't know if you know what deceased insect is. It's, we call it deceased insect or dead bug. You're supposedly not allowed to say the words.
Yeah.
Where somebody would scream that, and everybody would fall on their back and with feet up in the air like a dead bug. And the last guy that falls has to buy a round. Okay. So when somebody would scream deceased insect, believe me, everybody would drop, and we'd break furniture, whatever it took to get down the floor first.
You're talking 3-star generals.
Oh yeah,
flopping on the floor like this. Okay, somebody say, "Hey, over there in the corner, isn't that a dead bug?" And off you'd go.
Oh yeah, you had to pay attention, because somebody yelled and you're in the middle of heated conversation. Everybody drops. Guess what? You're sitting there standing, going, "What happened?
What just happened?" Yeah. I've actually watched our 1-star wing commander, and he made it to the floor probably before anybody else. Okay, but yeah.
Oh yeah.
People would say deceased insect. Oh, look over in the corner. There's a dead bug, and everybody would flop on the floor.
Oh yeah, you can see it coming almost. And of course, you go to the Philippines, and you go to QB Point and the QB Bar, which is a Navy bar.
Famous place.
They actually had a mock-up of a A7 or F8 cockpit that would go down a rail, and you'd have to try to, they have to catch this, they'd have to draft this tail hook, and see if you could catch it before it went into a pool. Okay.
Yeah, and the pool wasn't very nice.
No, it wasn't. It was kind of a murky, full of.
It was full of a lot of things, shall we say?
So I mean, we had. Let's just say when I was there, Westpac was a wild time. I mean, we flew hard. We stayed pretty focused on the mission. So we weren't flying, and we were partying pretty hard.
Yeah. Wayne Rowe brings up a good point. Flight of the Intruder had that section in it where they're doing that, the tailhook thing.
Remember? Oh yeah.
Yeah, and everybody thought, oh, this is really screwing everything. It actually happened that way.
It's real.
It's real.
It's real.
I
was there. I watched it. Been there. Done that. Bat hanging from the bar at QB Point. Yeah. But that's there's a lot of stories there.
Yeah, a lot of stories.
A lot of stories there. You can get people talking all night long about the stuff that went on in the O Club.
And they have since taken that whole O Club and have moved it back to the States.
I saw it. I took my wife and kids down to Pensacola.
Yeah.
And we figured, well, we're down here. Let's just go see the Naval Air Museum at Pensacola.
Fantastic museum.
Yeah, very, very good. Well done.
Yeah, very well.
But I was tired. I was dehydrated. I wanted to get something to drink. So I figured I'm going to get a hot dog and go to the cantina down here and get something to eat. So I walk into the cantina, and I realized by this time, they closed Clark. They closed QB Point. So
everything out of the Philippines.
Everything's out of the Philippines. It was all gone. I thought, man, those are memories gone by. And I walk in this door, and I look at it, and it was I just went back in time. They had taken down every one of the plaques and all the awards and everything.
Piece by piece.
And we're talking about bomb plaques that were coming through the ceiling and all that. And they recreated the QB bar, which was infamous
At Pensacola.
at Pensacola. And I almost came to tears. I went, oh, this is way to go, Navy, man.
Yeah.
I mean, they did not let that go.
Yeah.
And that was one of the most epic bars probably in the service.
In military history. Absolutely, man.
Oh yeah, and still there now.
Everybody went there in the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s. I mean, I was there in the 90s, and QB was still open. And it was still one of those famous places people wanted to go.
Oh yeah, and it's still there now, and thank God they preserved that.
Oh, absolutely.
That was epic.
Because it's an incredible piece of history. Well, brother, we've been going for an hour and a half, man.
Wow.
We're going to call this off. King
right.
Jack's on this. All right. Knock it off, knock it off, knock it off.
All.
Hope you guys enjoyed this. Again, my childhood buddy, Coma.
Guys, hope to see you guys some other time.
Yeah. I'm going to have him on again some other time. So appreciate all you guys joining us tonight. Thanks. And Sluggo signing off here.
Same with Coma.